Shalom. First and foremost, I'm going to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rachach, Warash. All right, Yahweh is the name of the Heavenly Father, meaning He is, He exists, He to be. Ba'in, Hada, Sham, name, Yahushai, being the name of the only begotten Son, meaning He delivers, He saves, Rachach, Warash, Holy Spirit. Double honors to the apostles and elders of great millstone that rule well, peace and blessings to the elect of the nation of Israel. Back at it again with another lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai. Lord willing's lesson is edifying. I'm the brother Ottawan, just getting straight to it through the spirit. Okay, and this lesson is going into the irony of disobedience. All right, the irony of disobedience, man. And when something is ironic, let's go into the definition of the word ironic real quick for edification's sake. It says ironic, using or characterized by irony. All right, so irony. It says the expression of one's meaning by using language that normally signifies the opposite, typically for humorous or emphatic effect, sarcasm. It says state of affairs or an event that seems deliberately contrary to what one expects and is often amusing as a result. All right. It says, it goes back to the Greek word iron. It says dissembler, ironia, simulated ignorance, irony. All right, it says simulated ignorance, dissembler. Okay, and a dissembler is to hide under false appearance. Okay, let me see real quick. It says dissembler is someone who pretends or conceals their true feelings, opinions, or intentions, often under a false appearance. They are essentially hypocrites or fakers. All right. So, just going into the root of the word irony, right? But as far as the context of the lesson, okay, it's really going into a state of affairs or an event that seems deliberately contrary to what one expects and is often amusing as a result, right? So the irony of disobedience, okay, is that I want to go into the account of Saul, okay, who was, formerly king over Israel, okay, but due to his disobedience, he got removed from being a king, okay, and the main thing that made him depart from the Lord was ultimately, it was just not set up for him to be king. It was always set up for King David to be the rightful king over Israel. But the main thing that made him depart from the Lord was his disobedience, his rebellion. He didn't take heed to instructions, okay? And, those same instructions that he failed to take heed to ended up coming back to haunt him later. So just to get straight to it through the spirit, when you're looking in context, the Lord told the prophet Samuel to tell Saul to slay the Amalekites. And Saul, instead of obeying the word of the Lord, he obeyed the words of the people. Okay, and he kept some of the best of the cattle alive to sacrifice, right? And he didn't slay all the Amalekites. Okay, because even Agag, the king of Amalek, he left alive. All right, so he didn't slay all the Amalekites. Okay, it says 1 Samuel 15, and let me start at verse 22, Lord willing. It says, and Samuel said, hath the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Because thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, he hath also rejected thee from being king. Okay, so rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, man. Due to Saul's disobedience, his rebellion against the words and the instruction of Yahweh Bashim Shai, All right, it was basically it was basically like committing witchcraft. It was basically like committing idolatry, which are sins worthy of death. So we must obey Yahweh Shemashai, okay? Because to rebel and to fight against the Lord and to be stubborn, you basically committing sins worthy of death, man. And that got Saul rejected from being king. And why was that? Because Saul didn't slay the Amalekites and all the beasts therein like the Lord told him to do so. So what ended up happening as a result of Saul's disobedience? What came to bite him in the ass later on? Saul got slain by an Amalekite, okay? He went to war with the Philistines, and he didn't want the Philistines to catch him. So basically, he tried to kill himself, but he couldn't get the job done. So he seen an Amalekite nearby and asked the Amalekite to slay him, okay? So this is 2 Samuel 1:1. And now it came to pass, after the death of Saul, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Amalekites, and David had abode in 2 days in Ziklag, and it came even to pass on the third day, that behold, a man came out of the camp from Saul with his clothes rent, and earth upon his head, which is a sign of mourning. And so it was, when he came to David, that he fell to the earth, and did obeisance. And David said unto him, From whence comest thou? And he said unto him, Out of the camp of Israel am I escaped. And David said unto him, How went the matter? I pray thee, tell me. And he answered, That the people are fled from the battle, and many of the people also are fallen and dead. And Saul and Jonathan his son are dead also. And David said unto the young man that told him, How knowest thou that Saul and Jonathan his son be dead? And the young man that told him said, As I happened by chance upon Mount Gilboa, behold, I send, it says, Behold, Saul leaned upon his spear, and lo, the chariots and horsemen followed hard after him. And when he looked behind him, he saw me, and called unto me. And I answered, Here am I. And he said unto me, Who art thou? And I answered him, I am an Amalekite. And he said unto me again, Stand, I pray thee, upon me, and slay me, for anguish is come upon me, because my life is yet whole in me. So Saul's asking this Amalekite to take him out, because he tried to kill himself by leaning on his own spear, right? And he couldn't, and the Lord didn't take his spirit. Okay? So I stood upon, 2 Samuel 1:10. So I stood upon him and slew him, because I was sure that he could not live after that he was fallen. And I took the crown that was upon his head and the bracelet that was on his arm, and I brought them hither unto my Lord. Then David took hold on his clothes and rent them, and likewise all the men that were with him. Going to show you how compassionate King David was, because even though Saul was seeking his life, King David still mourned over his death, and Jonathan. And they mourned and wept and fasted until even for Saul and for Jonathan his son, and for the people of the Lord, and for the house of Israel, because they were fallen by the sword. And David said unto the young man that told him, Whence art thou? And he answered, I am the son of a stranger, an Amalekite. And David said unto him, How wast thou not afraid to stretch forth thine hand to destroy the Lord's anointed? And David called one of the young men and said, Go near and fall upon him. And he smote him that he died. And David said unto him, Thy blood be upon thy head, for thy mouth hath testified against thee, saying, I have slain the Lord's anointed. You see? So King David ended up slaying that same Amalekite that slew King Saul, man. Okay? You know, he thought he was bringing King David good news, and King David slew him, man. You know, going to show you the Lord don't fuck with Amalek on no type of level, because the Lord's the one who moved King David's spirit to slay that Amalekite, or had a young man slay the Amalekite. All right, by the order of King David. Okay? And that also shows you the compassion and the love King David had towards his nation, his people, the Israelites. Okay? Even Saul, you know? But that same disobedience that led Saul to the point of his death, okay, was the same reason why he died, so to speak, man. You know, the Lord told him to slay Amalek. He left Amalek alive. Amalek ended up slaying him, man. That's why it says in Wisdom Solomon 11:16, that they might know that wherewithal a man sinneth, by the same also shall he be punished. Okay? So the same sins that you commit ends up becoming the same thing that punishes you, man. You know? A man can't contain himself. He always wants to commit adultery. Next thing you know, that same woman who he committed adultery with, her husband is the one to put him to death, so to speak. You know? Or he caught a disease from her. Because the same sins that he was committing, those same sins ended up biting him in the ass, man. And I'm just giving an example. This Isaiah 66:4, it says, I will also choose their delusions and will bring their fears upon them. Because when I called, none did answer. When I spake, they did not hear. But they did evil before mine eyes and chose that in which I delighted not. So the Lord said he's going to cause their own delusions to fall upon them, man. Their own sins, their own transgressions shall be their accusers in that day. Like it also says in Proverbs 1:31, therefore shall they eat of, I'm going to start at verse 28. Proverbs 1:28, then shall they call upon me, but I will not answer. They shall seek me early, but they shall not find me. For that they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. They would none of my counsel, they despise all my reproof. So same way Saul despised the reproof and the correction of Samuel, the counsel of the Lord, the fear of the Lord, right? It says what? Therefore shall they eat of the fruit of their own way and be filled with their own devices. So the same thing that you wanted to choose over the Lord, you're going to have to reap and bear the reward from that judgment. Okay? It says, for the turning away of the simple shall slay them, and the prosperity of fools shall destroy them. But whoso hearkeneth unto me, unto Yahweh Shemashai, right, shall dwell safely and shall be quiet from fear of evil. Right? So that's the point. Okay? That's the irony of disobedience. The same thing that you were disobeying the Lord with could be the same thing the Lord uses to execute judgment upon you. Okay? So we want to make sure that we're fearing Yahweh Shemashai. We're taking heed to his counsel and his reproof and his instruction, because that leads to the ways of life. You know, so I'm going to wrap it up with that. Lord willing, lessons edifying. I'm going to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Chakodash. Double honors to the apostles and others, great most and never well. Peace and blessings to you, like the nation of Israel. Shalom, Abba, Kwam Yasharal.